Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi. Avodah Zarah Daf Mem Beis. We are holding Mem Beis Amud Aleph, 15 lines off the top. So back to that discussion begun yesterday between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. An Avodah Zarah, an idol, which fell apart. It collapsed. It broke. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it is still considered Avodah Zarah. It still maintains its status. You can't take it, you can't benefit from it, etc. Rish Lakish disagrees. He says it's mutter. You know why? Because presumably the owner, the guy who owned that idol, will think to himself, look, he's powerless. He couldn't do much to protect himself and keeping himself from collapsing and falling apart and breaking. What good could he do for me? So basically he's mevatel. He negates his Avodah Zarah. He renders it worthless, valueless, obsolete, in which case it loses its status. That's the halacha. If a guy is mevatel his Avodah Zarah, it loses its Avodah Zarah status. Okay, so coming up we have a list of several kashas that were posed by Rabbi Yochanan to Rish Lakish. So Rabbi Yochanan was going to bring some braysos, some halachos to support his position that even the Avodah Zarah shenish dabra me'eleh, which collapsed on its own, is still Avodah Zarah, it's still aser. I'll prove it to you from the brayso esvei. So he asked him a kash. Oived gechav. So a guy mevatel avodas gechav shaloi b'shel chavera. If he decides to be mevatel it, to actually break it, abandon it, whether it's his own idol, his friend's idol, it renders it obsolete. However, v'Yisrael, if it's a Yid who's being mevatel the guy's idol, that does not work. V'Yisrael ain't mevatel avodas gechav shaloi b'gechav. So even if he bashes it, breaks it apart, he destroys it, the bittul does not take effect. The question is why? Why not? Let's say for some reason a Yisrael, doesn't have the power to, to be mevatel the guy's idol. Fine, let's say, but let's disregard the cause of this destruction. Who cares who did it? The fact is, right now it's broken. Right now, it's fallen apart. It's destroyed. It's no worse than an idol that just fell apart for lack of maintenance, right? Which according to Rish Lakish is mutter. Why is this any different? To have it, let it be considered kavetz gechav, like an idol. Shenish daber me'eleh, which just fell apart on its own. It should be mutter. Amabayi, we're mistaken in terms of what happened. He didn't break it. He didn't destroy it. Shepachsa, he just bashed it in a little bit. He disfigured its face. And that's not really considered adequate for bittul. Asks the Gemara, but it is. Even if he disfigured it, why is that not enough? But now we have a Mishnah that also is considered bittul. Right? The guy punches his idol and disfigures its face. Even though it's not missing anything. No material has been broken off. Batla, the tailor, it's batal. Why is this any different? Well, it is different. You know why? Hani mili the pachsa oived gechav. That's true if a guy disfigured the idol, it's batal. Aval pachsa Yisrael batal. If the Yid does it, it doesn't affect the status of the idol. Why? Says Rashi, it's very different than a statue that collapsed, where the guy says, he thinks to himself, what good is he? If he can't protect himself, he can't protect me. I'm going to find myself another, But here, Abul Hacha, if it's merely disfigured, the guy is thinking, my God is humble, he's tolerant, he's erecha, right? Abul Hacha kasava oived gechav like kapta. Avodas gechav ma'apchisa. Avodas gechav is not rattled by this disfiguration. He can tolerate it. He can handle it. So he doesn't negate his Avodah Zarah in this type of circumstance. So that's one teretz. The Rava comes and gives us another teretz. The truth is, even if the pachisa, this disfiguration, would happen by way of a yid, truthfully, it would affect the status. It would render the idol obsolete in terms of its halachic status. So why not? Ella, there's a gzeira, the Rabbanu were concerned. Dilma magbala, perhaps instead of the yid just attacking the idol as is, standing on the floor, he would actually pick it up and perhaps admire it, and by doing so, he's going to be acquiring the idol. It's now turned into an Avodah Zarah belonging to a yid, and in that case, bittul doesn't work. That's the halacha, that if lo yaleinu, a yid strays and serves an idol and owns an idol, he cannot be mevatel that idol. Bittul only works by an idol owned by a guy. But if it's owned by a yid, we learn from a pasuk, Rashi says, "V'sam baseiser," it retains its status regardless. Perhaps because the yid has more power within him, so when he strays, he's sort of diverting that kedusha, and he's sort of embedding it in the Avodah Zarah, and then it gives it more durability. It's more resilient. In any case, you cannot be mevatel it. So we're concerned that if he does it to the guy's Avodah Zarah, maybe it could happen that he'll pick it up. By picking it up, he's doing hagbah, lifting it as a kinyan, and now it's a Yiddish-owned idol where bittul is ineffective. Dilma magbal, he might pick it up, and then go to bittul, which is ineffective. It's an Avodah in the hands of a yid, owned by a yid, where bittul doesn't work. If an Avodah is owned by a yid, it cannot be bottled forever. So again, the kasha post Rish Lakish was, Brisa says if a yid is, attacks the idol of the guy, it doesn't work, it doesn't make it bittul. What do you mean? Why should it be worse than the idol that just collapsed, that fell apart, It is worse. Either we're speaking that he just disfigured it, which is not sufficient, or Rava's gzeira, because it can lead to doing the same by a Jewish-owned idol. Eisfei, here comes another kasha, presented by Rabbi Yechanan. He says, Akum shehevi avanim yavalacha, a guy imports some stones, minamarkulis, that's the this type of stone structure that was worshipped. So it's a pile of stones. So he brings in some of those stones to pave his road. V'chipa behen drachim tartiyos, to pave the roads, to pave the plaza. Mutaris, you can use the road, the plaza. You know why? Because the guy was basically mevatel, that Avodah Zarah, when he collapsed the pile of stones to use it for building materials. So the drachim, the road, tartiyos or sartiyos, maybe like the highways or whatever that he used to he used it for, would be okay because it's no longer considered Avodah Zarah. Okay, but that's only if the guy did it. Then it's mutaris. The Yisrael shehevi avanim minamarkulis. But if the yid imported those stones, v'chipa ben drachim v'tartiyos asuras, you can't use the roads. The same question applies. Amai, why not? At worst, it's like a Avodah Zarah that collapsed. So let's disregard the person who did it. The fact is, right now we have a broken Avodah Zarah, a stone from the Markulis, which should automatically be considered batal. Here as well, we can apply Rava's concern that next time the yid might actually lift it and be kainet, and in which case bittul is ineffective. So anything done by a yid is not going to be mutter. Eisvei comes another kasha with the same teretz. So let's say there's an Avodah Zarah tree, an Asherah tree, which they would worship, and the guy came and shipa, he shaved it, he trimmed it. What's the status of that Avodah Zarah? What's the status of the wood shavings? So it depends on his intention. The tzarchai, if it was for the sake of the Avodah Zarah, the tzarchai, if it was for his personal use, he needed the shavings, for firewood, then that's deemed a bittul on the Avodah Zarah. Look, he diverted it for personal use. I mean, there's no greater bittul than that. no greater act of disregard to the Avodah Zarah. So the actual Avodah Zarah itself, the principle, Vishifuya, and the shavings are mutar, going forward, mutar, permissible material. But if it's Zarcha, if he did it for the sake of the Avodah Zarah itself, to beautify it, to trim it, so then we differentiate between the actual tree is still asura, still considered Avodah Zarah, Vishifuya mutarin, but the shavings, which are now sort of broken pieces, they have no value, they're not part of the Avodah Zarah anymore, and they're mutar. That's if the guy did it, but the Yisrael, Sheshifa, the Yisrael came and he shaved the Avodah Zarah, then either way, bein l'tzarchai, whether for his personal use, bein l'tzarcha, whether it's for the sake of the Avodah Zarah, he vishifuya asuran, the tree itself is still asur, the shavings are asur, and the question is, why am I? Who cares if it was done by the Yid? At worst, let it be like an Avodah Zarah that collapsed, that got demolished, and should automatically be considered batal, according to Rish Lakish, who says that in fact that type of Avodah Zarah would be mutar. Says the Gemara, the same could be applied here. Rav is concerned that if it's a Jewish-owned idol, bittul would not any more work, so we're concerned that it might become a Jewish idol. Eisvei comes another kash. Rabbi Yossi Omer, no, so what do you do if you find a statue of Avodah Zarah? Rabbi Yossi says, Sheichek v'zera the ruach, grind it up and, toss it out into the wind so that it gets dispersed and nobody can find it. Or throw it into the ocean. You're creating a pitfall, a problem. So although he's trying to get rid of it, but in reality, nasa zevel, he's creating another problem because it's going to turn into fertilizer. Basically, it's going to float around, the little particles of whatever this is, and it's going to land in somebody's property, and it's going to turn into fertilizer. It's going to fertilize the property. And the pasuk says, we can't have any benefit from Avodah Zarah. Lo yidbak bi yalchamu min acherim. None of the cherim, none of the Avodah Zarah should come to you. You shouldn't have any benefit from it. Okay, now the question is, who cares about those little particles? Amai. They're destroyed Avodah Zarah materials. They should be mutar, regardless. Amai tehavi. Kavodas kecham, let it be considered like an idol. Shenishtabra me'elo, which fell apart on its own, which according to Rish Lakish is perfectly permissible. The same could be said over here. Rav is concerned that if it were to become Avodah Zarah owned by a Yid, bittul wouldn't work. So we're concerned about that. Eisvei comes another kasha. Rabbi Yossi ben Yasun Omer, Motza tzuras darka. Walking down the street and he finds this darkain formation. So it's some sort of snake. Okay, so this figure, snake figure. Without its head. The question is, who removed the head? Safek oived gecham chatochai, safek Yisrael chatochai. The guy could have beheaded the darkain, in which case it's like bittul. Perhaps a Yid did it. So we're not sure. Mutar, you can use the broken darkain. Vada Yisrael chatochai also, but if you know for sure that the Yid was the one who removed the head, then it's asr. Rashi explains, because in the first case, there's a double doubt, a double suffix. Who says this thing was ever worshipped? Who's to say it was even Avodah Zarah? And secondly, even if it was, maybe the guy was mavatalit, right? So this double suffix allows it to be used. However, if you know that a Yid did it, then you don't have that heter. The question is why, but at the end of the day, it's demolished, it's broken, it's helpless. The owner negates it. Amai tahabi. Let us consider it like an idol, which fell apart on its own. It's no worse than that, and it should be mutter. Rava's concept can be applied here as well. The Jews involved, we don't allow it. Eisvei comes another kash. Rabbi Yossi Omer, af lo yirakos b'mois hagasham. Can one plant vegetables beneath an asherah in Avodah Zarah tree? Rabbi Yossi says, even during the winter, when the leaves of the tree aren't, the branches aren't really blocking the sun and really providing protection to the plants beneath it, So even during winter time, you still should not be planting yirakos under that tree. You know why? Because those leaves will shed from that tree, land on the vegetable patch, and provide fertilization. So you're benefiting from the Avodah Zarah tree. Same question applies. Those leaves are broken off the tree. Amai, what's the problem? Tihavi, let it be considered like an Avodah Zarah item that fell apart on its own, and it's permissible. Oh, Shani Hasam, it's very different over there. The Ikar Avodah Kayemes, because the actual tree, the source of those leaves, are still around. Is still around, and it's just really preparing for the next batch of leaves. So it sheds one batch, and that allows the next batch to grow. It's part of the natural growth cycle of a tree. That's not a broken, demolished Avodah Zarah. So the Gemara in the Kasha figured, well, if it's an Avodah Zarah tree, the owner should really expect it to hold on to its leaves in a supernatural, manner. The fact that the tree is behaving very natural, manner would perhaps serve to negate at least the leaves which are falling off the tree. Right? They're no longer important to him. They're broken off the tree. The answer is no. The fact is, it's sort of being produced by the tree, which is Avodah Zarah, and it's just part of the regular, normal, growth cycle. In which case, the leaves themselves still relate to the tree. They're not considered broken and demolished, and they're considered Avodah Zarah. Ask the Gemara, Vaha Shipuyan. Hold it. If that's correct, that when the principal item is still around, so even the things that it shed and broken off that item are still considered Avodah Zarah. So what about the halach of the shavings, right? They shaved off the tree. The Ikar Avodah Zarah Kayemes. In that case, the tree is still around, right? Uktani, still we said before, the tzarcha. If he shaved it to benefit the tree, he asura. The tree maintains its isur status. V'shifuya mutar, but the shavings lose the Avodah Zarah status. Apparently, once it detaches, it's considered waste. It's worthless. It's no longer Avodah Zarah. So why is it different than those leaves shed by the tree? Rav Huna Breda V'Shu Amar, he says like this. Big difference. V'she'ein avodas kecham betela derech gedelosa. Oh, it's very different. When you have shavings off the tree, they're really detached, broken, worthless, valueless, and they're no longer Avodah Zarah. But leaves off a tree is derech gedelosa, like we explained. It's part of the growth cycle. It's part of the regular activity of a tree, right? Oh, and here the Mefarshim explained, the Ritva explained that it's to prepare for the next batch of leaves. So therefore, it's not considered bittul. It's not considered, broken or worthless or valueless. It's part of the tree. It's part of a cycle. It's part of the growth cycle that it produces these leaves, which eventually shed and make room for the next batch. So therefore, it's still considered part of the forbidden entity. Okay, so up until now we had a string of questions posed by Rabbi Yochanan to Reish Lakish. You say that Avodas Kacham that collapsed, that broke, that was demolished, is automatically given up by its owner, its batel. What about all these cases where we see that it doesn't necessarily work so easily? The answer was, the Rava were concerned about all kinds of things. Okay, now comes Reb Shimon Lakish asking Rabbi Yochanan. Eisvei Reb Shimon Lakish Rabbi Yochanan. So you, Rabbi Yochanan, hold that a broken Avodah Zarah is still considered asur? Here's an interesting halacha. So Eisvei Reb Shimon Lakish Rabbi Yochanan. Kan sheberosh ha'ilan. If you notice a nest perched atop a tree belonging to Hegdish, to the Beis HaMikdash, can one remove the nest? Loi nehenen. So with the Rabban, you should not have it, take it for yourself. V'loi mayalan, but technically, if he does it, it's not considered min ha-Torah as a violation of Me'ilah, which typically would apply when one diverts Hegdish property for personal use. He has to bring a carbon. That wouldn't apply in the case of a nest. Why? We're going to see soon. So that's the first case. A nest on top of a hegdish tree. What about on top of an Asherah, an Avodah Zarah tree? B'reisha shel Asherah. Yotes b'kara, no problem. Flick it off with your stick and use it. You can't climb up the tree on the tree because you can be nana from the tree while you're climbing. Flick it off, remote control, and use the nest. Now, where did the bird obtain the nest material used to build his nest? Was it locally taken? Was it clipped off this tree? Or was it imported from elsewhere? So at this point we figure it took local twigs off these trees and it formed its nest and nested into that material. So in the first case it was from the hegdish tree. In the second case it was from the Asherah tree. And what does the halacha say? Even if it was from the Asherah tree, you can use it, you can take it. Apparently, once it's broken off the Avodah Zarah, it no longer has Avodah Zarah status to it. Uktani atis bekanik, just flick it off with a stick. That's a right to me, says Rish Lakish. A broken Avodah Zarah is worthless. It's no longer awesome. No, my skin was speaking that it crafted its nest using imported material. Kigoin the ice etzim alma. It brought twigs from elsewhere, vikinsa ben, and created its nest. In which case, it's not related to Avodah Zarah. And of course, it's mutter. The economic will even prove to you that we're dealing with imported materials. Because in the first example, by the hegdish, it says, don't use it. Loy nenen, v'loy moyalan. Don't use it, but if he does, there's no me'ilah committed. That would only make sense if, in fact, the twigs were not taken from this hegdish tree. Because otherwise, it would be considered a severe violation of me'ilah if you take it for yourself. This works very well. The etzim alma. Yeah, if you imported twigs from elsewhere, which are non-hegdish twigs, that would explain. That would explain the halacha by hegdish. Loy nanan. L'chatchila, preferably you shouldn't approach it, shouldn't use it because it can come, to use the tree. But after the fact, you haven't really committed milah, right? Loy nanan means midrabanan. We don't allow it. V'loy moyalan means midaraisa. Minat-Torah. You haven't really committed milah by taking that nest for yourself because the halay kadishi, because it wasn't comprised of holy material, hegdish twigs. Eli armas sheshavar eitzim imenu v'kintzim imenu. If you're going to assume that he picked off local twigs and created its nest, so the nest is comprised of hegdish material, and if one diverts it for personal use, he certainly has committed mi'ilah min ha-Torah. Why is it not mi'ilah? Ha-Kadishi, it's Kaddish. Well, says the Gemara, not so quick. We can even suggest that it was local material, and still, there's no mi'ilah. You know why? Midi area, that's not really a solid proof. Hacha, bigedulin, the animal, the bird, the twigs that he took came about after the tree was donated. So it wasn't there originally when the tree was donated to Hegdish. It grew later, right? The twigs, the branches, they grew after it was donated. B'gedulin haborim la'achar mekanaskina. So he donated it last year, and throughout the year the twigs grew and prospered, and then the bird picked up some of those twigs. So since it came about later, this Tana will hold ein me'ilah b'gedulin. Growth that comes later is not technically included in the initial donation. There's no me'ilah on that because the hegdish does not really apply to potential, to things which happen later. So that would explain why, even if one takes these twigs, he has not committed me'ilah. So it can very well be that it was locally, it was imported from elsewhere, and that would answer why there's no problem here. But as to your proof, it's not really a proof because technically we could explain the halacha even with local materials, and the absence of milah is related to the fact that it only grew after the moment of hegdish, that it was obtained by hegdish. Okay, so again, let's just recap. The kasha was on Rabbi Yechanan because the Mishnah seems to say that you can be matis bekana, you can take the nest off the Asherah tree and presumably it's comprised of local materials from the Asherah tree itself. So what's the heter? The answer is because it's batal. Why is it batal? Because it's broken. You see, the broken stuff is batal. The answer was no. Perhaps nobody used Asherah material. Nobody used Hegdish material. These birds imported their materials from elsewhere. So that would explain the lack of Isser. Lack of Isser by Asherah. And by Hegdish, you shouldn't be taken. Rashi explains the difference is because by Asherah, people are just naturally inclined to be averse to Avodah Zarah. Bedili minei, he says. People are just accustomed to keeping a distance from Avodah Zarah. So there's no concern that he's going to take it a step further and he's going to actually enjoy the tree itself. Whereas by Hegdish, the delineation isn't so stark. It's Hegdish, so people might confuse things. If you allow the nest to be taken, you might actually use the tree. So better to keep away. That's Midrabban. Here comes another terrace to this kasha. Again, the kasha was post Rabbi Yechna by Rish Lakish. How could the Mishnah allow removal of the nest off the Asherah tree, right? If it's really Avodah Zarah. Rabbi Vo, Rabbi Yechna, he says, look, my yatis be'efroichen. We're not allowing a person to actually take the nest off the tree. When the Mishnah says, if you discover a nest atop an Asherah tree, you can be matis bekana. It's the chicklings inside, the little birds. So whether it's Asherah tree, whether it's perched on a Hegdish tree, either way it would be okay to take the birds. And when the Mishnah said, well, loy nen, and you shouldn't have any benefit, that's referring to the nest itself, the tree material, the wood material, the twigs that make up the nest. Then you shouldn't do lechatchila, because you might actually end up, using the tree itself, climbing on the tree. So don't. It's better not to use. Right? So basically, according to this approach, although the Mishnah split into two, but really both halachos apply to both scenarios. Hegdish and Asherah are pretty much on the same boat. So the difference is, what are you taking? What are you attempting to take? The chicklings, either way you can take, no problem. But the actual nest material, which is wood material, twig material, you shouldn't be taking either way, because although technically it would be okay to take that, but let's say by Hegdish, because like we said, the twigs that came after was donated, not really included in the Hegdish. But let's not take a chance, because if you take that, you might actually clip something off the tree, and that was there initially. Okay, and by Asherah, certainly you have no right to take the nest material, which we assume was, perhaps comprised of Asherah twigs. So the actual nest, hands off. But the chicklings, gesundheit, you take them. So again, Amalei Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Tachlif Azbelach. So again, Ravo Amar Rabbi Yechon answered, right, to Rish Lakish's kasha, my yatis be'efreichen. You're asking me about this tree, how can you take the nest? No, not taking the nest, I'm just taking the chicklings. Amalei Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Tachlif Azbelach. Let me explain to you. This how this Mishnah works according to Rabbi Yechon. What do you mean? Be'efreichen, if he's merely taking the chicklings, kan v'kan mutarin, whether it's the nest of the Hegdish tree or nest on top of the Asherah tree, they're mutar. Be'beitzim, but the actual eggs, so if they're not yet birds that can fly, they're just eggs, so then it relates to the tree itself, and it can cause confusion. It can cause a person to actually take from the tree itself. Kan v'kan asurin, whether it's Hegdish or Asherah, hands off. If it's a little chickie, which still needs its mother bird, meaning it cannot yet fly on its own, we treat it kebeitzim domo, like the eggs. It's like, part of the tree entity, in which case there's a gzera to keep away, lest you come to take from the tree itself. Okay, let's just do a quick recap. Starting point of our discussion today was Avodah Zarah shenishtabra me'alel. So nobody actually bashed it or destroyed it, it just fell apart due to lack of maintenance. Is it still asur? Rabbi Yochanan says, yeah, unless somebody actively was mevatel it. Rish Lakish says, look, the owner presumably negates it, considers it obsolete. It couldn't do much to protect itself. It's going to protect me, right? So Rabbi Yochanan came along with lots of shaylos on Rish Lakish, and they were resolved. And likewise, Rish Lakish had a kasha to Rabbi Yochanan, which was resolved as well. Says the Mishnah, Moitzei Kalim. Walking down the street, you find a kli, a utensil with an engraving on it, with a design on it, valeim, on which you have tzuras chama, design, a picture of the sun, tzuras levana, the moon, tzuras darka, and some sort of mighty-looking snake, which they would sometimes, worship. So all these items are off limits. Yolichem li'amamelech, thrown into the Dead Sea, out of reach. Ram Shimon le'loimer, well, it depends. Shalom chubadin. These caricatures were found on elegant-looking utensils, then we have to assume they're being worshipped asur. Shalom muvuzin mutar. They're sitting on containers used for in a degrading context, like for the bathroom. So then, presumably, the item was not Avodah Zarah. So the Mishnah gives us a list, a very limited list of 3 types of designs: sun, moon, or dark. Well, do you mean to say the lahani or the palchi? They only worship these symbols, these powers. The balchilu lemida achrina loy. They don't worship or pray or serve other concepts, symbols, or powers. V'ramini, we have a kasha from my Mishnah. We find that the list is actually very long in terms of the possibilities. Hashech adashum yam. If one does shchita on an animal, and he has in mind the oceans, the malach, the powers, the spiritual powers that control the oceans. L'shem naharis, the rivers, l'shem midbar, the desert, l'shem chama, the sun, l'shem levana, the moon, l'shem kechav mazolis, various stars, l'shem michael sarhagadol, the great malach Michael, l'shem shilshul katan, he has in mind the little snail, the power of the snail. All these are considered Avodah Zarah. Hareilu zivchei meisim are considered Avodah Zarah offerings. Apparently, their options aren't just limited to sun, moon, and darkain. There are many more options. Amar Abaye, you're right. Miflach, in terms of actually serving and worshipping, l'koil the mishtakchi, the mashkichi palchi. They whatever they find, whatever they get their hands on, they worship, they serve, they pray. But meitzah or maflachi, in terms of actually drawing and engraving as a symbol, as a picture, and worshipping that, hanit lasa, the chashivi, only these 3 prominent symbols. Tzayrilu palchilu, they'll engrave it, they'll worship it. Lemidachrina, l'noi ba'amud avdu, but other types of engravings and pictures, although you'll find it, but it's just l'noi ba'alma for decorative and adornment purposes, not for the sake of worship. That's just the way it was. Mankid Rav Sheshes, Chomri Masnais of Atani. Rav Sheshes brought along several difficult to decipher, so to speak, braises, halachis. Vatani, and he presented them as follows. So we have basically a presentation by Rav Sheshes containing 3 separate statements sort of wrapped into one presentation. One is mazolis, one is something related to partsufin. Mazolis are these, heavenly celestial bodies. Partsufin are basically like a facial figure. Now we have tsuros, other types of figures, animal figures, etc. So he says like this: Kol hamazolis mutarin. All types of items that resemble celestial bodies are okay. Chutz mazal chamal levan, except for one that represents the sun or the moon. V'chala partzufim mutarin. All types of faces are okay. Chutz partzuf except for a human face. V'chala tzuris mutaris. All types of figures are okay. Chutz mitzuris darken, except for the darkened figure. Now, what do you mean to say? To manufacture them? To use them if you find them? Like, what's the issue here? Let's go back and review this presentation. We begin. Kol hamazolis mutarin, right? Except chutz mimazal chamal. Now, what's going on? What's he trying to do? B'mayaskinan. What are we speaking about? Ilim ba'isa is the question in terms of manufacturing these figures and symbols. If he's trying to make them, you can't make any image in the form of any star, of any celestial body. It's a pasuk. Kol hamazolos mishari, how can he do any mazel? V'oksiv lo yisasun iti. And we learn lo yisasun kidmuz shamashay. One is not meant to form something which is an imitation of shamashay hamashamshin l'fanei b'mara, my servants that serve me in the upper spheres, any star, any moon, any right. So it's not just limited to the Cham and Levana. Any sort of star cannot be imitated. Oh, we're not speaking about manufacturing. He discovered this item in the street. And it's a question of Avodah Zarah, a totally different issue. Is this thing considered Avodah Zarah or not? Look at this now, as we learned in the Mishnah, right? He found a kli. He finds an image of the sun, the moon, the darken. It's deemed Avodah Zarah and it's off limits. And again, that's limited only to the sun and the moon and the darken. But if he finds a picture of a different type of star, a different type of planet, that would be okay, because it's not typically engraved for worshipping purposes, right? They only worship, they engrave and worship only the primary providers of light or energy, sun and the moon. So that's the first part of Rav Shesh's halach. Again, kol hamazolos mutarin chutz mimazal cham levana, speaking about encountering this utensil with this image on it. Unless it's the sun and the moon, you're safe in terms of Avodah Zarah. Even Maitzef, Rav Shesh is speaking about encountering items in the street. Okay, let's move on to the next, to part 2 of his halacha. So what about the middle halacha, which says kol hapartzufos mutarin, all faces are okay, chutz mipartzuf adam, except for a human face. He found something with a face. Even Maitzef, he only found something. What's the problem? Parts of Adam or even a human face would be okay, but none. Mishnah clearly says it's limited to Avodah Zarah concern is limited only to sun and the moon. Vatan ha'moitze kelim valem tzuras chama, right? The sun, tzuras levan and the moon, tzuras darken. Then you have a problem on your hands. Yulichem liyam melach. So only tzuras darken in. Only if it looks like a darken, then it's presumed Avodah Zarah. But parts of Adam loy, but if there's a face of a person on it, it's just a little memorial, a little picture. It's not Avodah Zarah. Lloyd, there's no problem. So apparently, item 2 in Rav Shesh's presentation is speaking about a manufacturing question. Can I make these things? Yeshua, who's going to tell us later on that a person may not manufacture a human face, human bust. Okay? So all faces are okay. Animals you can do, but not a person. Because that resembles what goes on in the upper spheres and the Merkava by Hashem. Okay, we'll see later. Okay, so that works. So if we're speaking about producing a Mosefa, let's move on to the third item in Rav Shesh's list. He spoke about different forms. Kol hatzuros mutaros, all forms are okay. Chutz mitzuros darken, except for the darken form. So again, we're speaking about making these things. If you're just making them, tzuros darken mi aser. Why is it also to make a picture of this dragon, of this whatever, this snake? Okay, and the Bach adds, you can't manufacture a sun, a moon, those things, but honey, only these items are forbidden to manufacture in tzuras darkenly, but not a snake. That's not a problem. That's not a heavenly celestial body. Might say. So clearly, this last statement in Rav Shesh's presentation speaks about not making, but rather finding these things with an Avodah Zarah concern, right? But might say, because it's not, as the Mishnah says, if you find an item with a darkin on it, it's Avodah Zarah. It's not Hamoitze Kelim Balem Tzuras Chama, etc. It's Avodah Zarah. So basically, Reisha V'Seifa B'Maitze. So within Rav Shesh's presentation, we have to conclude that item 1 by the Mazoles, where he says sun and moon are problematic, is where he found these items. Because you can make them, right? No problem making them. Found them. And it's an Avodah Zarah concern. Item 3, where he says the darken is a problem, again, he encountered this figure on an item that he found, Avodah Zarah concern. So Reish V'Sefer, the first and last, V'Moitze, he found these items. And we're dealing with Avodah Zarah. U'Mitziyasa versus the middle item, when he said all faces are okay except for a human face, that would not be a Avodah Zarah concern. Apparently we're speaking about making, a whole different issue. Could I manufacture this type of form? U'Mitziyasa Ba'isa, which is a little bit, unusual to have one presentation split different ways. Amar Ba'ya, that's the only way to explain it. Incorrect. Reisha v'Sefer might say the first and last item was speaking about encountering, finding these items, and the issue is whether it should be considered Avodah Zarah. U'Mitziyasa Ba'isa versus the middle item is speaking about a question of manufacturing something, making it. And there we say a human face is us. Rava Amar Rava says Kula b'Moitze. The entire string of cases is speaking about the same type of circumstance, finding these things. So he found the item with the sun, with the moon, with the darken. That's a problem. It's Avodah Zarah. So what about finding something with a human face? Why would that be Avodah Zarah? Right? It's not mentioned in the Mishnah. It's following a different shita who adds even a human face to this list of possible Avodah Zarah issues. The Sanya. Rida adds to the list not only if you find something with a sun and a moon and a darken, aftermus menika, likewise the image of a woman nursing vesar, or a minister office who's providing. Some say office is like efes, like meaningless. It's referring to the Avodah Zarah in a disparaging way. But in any case, so he finds these figures. So even a human form can sometimes indicate Avodah Zarah. What's the significance of these forms? Menika, the nursing woman, al shem Chava, symbolizes the first woman Chava, Shemanika Kulei Kuloi, who's nursing everybody, providing for everybody, and they're worshipping that symbol. Kulei Kuloi. Saraf, that man provider, is actually al shem Yosef, on the name of, it represents the idea of Yosef HaTzadik, who was the provider of goods in Mitzrayim. He fed the world with the grain. Shesar, who turned into a sar, he was a minister. It's like a samach turning into a sin. Sar is like a sar. Umeifis is called kuloi, and he provided everybody with their needs. But it's only an issue who provided the naked grave of the image depicts a man who's holding this sort of measuring cup, and he's measuring and he's providing. So that's representative of Yosef HaTzadik, and they're sort of worshipping this provider symbol. And likewise with the woman, it's only an issue, the nakta ben v'kamenikav, she's clutching this baby, the son, and feeding him. Again, that symbolizes Chava, and would be an object of worship. Okay, so we have this Mishnah. A person encounters kalim with engravings, with images. Is there an Avodah Zarah concern? The Gemara concludes it's only with respect to three primary images, sun, moon, and a darken, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Likewise, a minika representing Chava, and the saraf is representing a provider. All the best to you and Hatzlach.